Welcome to WorldData Pulse. Today, we are taking a journey through more than a century of global military spending. Money is the sinew of war, and by tracking the defense budgets of the world's most powerful nations from 1920 all the way to projected figures for 2026, we can see the exact financial footprints of world wars, Cold Wars, geopolitical shifts, and the modern technological arms race. Our data tells a story not just of dollars and cents, but of shifting global power dynamics. Watch closely as empires rise and fall, alliances are forged and broken, and new superpowers emerge on the world stage. Let's dive into the numbers. We begin our journey in 1920, shortly after the devastating conclusion of the First World War. The geopolitical landscape is in a state of exhaustion. Global military spending is relatively low as nations focus on rebuilding their shattered economies. The United States leads the pack with a budget of roughly $1.6 billion, followed by Russia and Japan. European powers like Italy and the United Kingdom are also maintaining modest standing armies. But the appetite for massive military investment is essentially non-existent among the general public. Throughout the 1920s, the figures remain somewhat stagnant. The US budget hovers around $1.5 billion, while Japan gradually increases its expenditure, reflecting its growing imperial ambitions in the Asia-Pacific region. However, as we cross into the 1930s, the global mood begins to darken. The Great Depression ravages global economies, but paradoxically, military spending starts to creep up as authoritarian regimes take root. By 1935, a clear arms race is brewing in Europe. Germany, heavily restricted by the Treaty of Versailles, secretly and then overtly begins a massive rearmament campaign. By 1938, on the eve of World War II, global military budgets are skyrocketing. Germany's expenditure explodes, while Russia, Japan, and the United Kingdom desperately ramp up their defense manufacturing to prepare for the inevitable conflict. When the Second World War officially breaks out in 1939, military budgets transform into wartime economies. Entire nations are mobilized for total war. Look at the staggering exponential growth between 1940 and 1945. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the United States enters the fray, and its military budget does not just increase, it shatters all historical precedents. The American defense budget leaps from a mere $2.5 billion in 1940 to over $21 billion in 1941, and then continues its astronomical climb. By 1944 and 1945, the US is spending an incomprehensible $80 billion to $89 billion annually. They become the arsenal of democracy, outproducing and outspending the Axis powers by a massive margin. Simultaneously, Germany and the Soviet Union are locked in a brutal war of attrition on the Eastern Front, reflecting heavily in their budgets. Germany peaks at over $38 billion in 1944, right before its collapse. The United Kingdom also maintains an enormous financial burden to keep its war machine running, hitting over $12 billion. When the war finally ends in 1945, financial drain on the global economy is unprecedented. The immediate aftermath of World War II sees a sharp, dramatic demobilization. By 1947, the US budget drops back down to around $13 billion. But this peace dividend is short-lived. The geopolitical board is now divided between two massive superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. As the Iron Curtain descends across Europe, the Cold War begins. The outbreak of the Korean War in 1950 acts as the catalyst for the next massive spike in defense spending. The US budget quadruples back up to $40 billion within a couple of years. We also see the emergence of a new player on the chart, China, rapidly organizing its military forces under a newly established communist government. Throughout the late 1950s and into the 1960s, the strategy shifts from massive ground armies to the terrifying calculus of mutually assured destruction. Trillions of dollars are poured into nuclear arsenals, intercontinental ballistic missiles, space races, and advanced submarine fleets. The United States consistently holds the #1 spot, maintaining a budget between $40 billion and $60 billion. Russia remains firmly in second place, continuously matching American technological advancements, while countries like the UK, France, and West Germany stabilize their budgets as key pillars of the NATO alliance. As we enter the 1970s, transitioning to CIPRI data, the global arms race becomes a marathon. The Vietnam War keeps American spending high, while the Soviet Union pours massive resources into maintaining its sphere of influence in Eastern Europe and projecting power globally. By the 1980s, under the Reagan administration, the United States initiates a massive peacetime military buildup, pushing the defense budget past the $200 billion and eventually the $300 billion mark. They are investing heavily in a 600-ship navy, stealth technology, and advanced fighter jets. The Soviet Union attempts to keep pace, but the economic strain of matching American defense spending, combined with a costly war in Afghanistan, begins to fracture the Soviet economy. By the late 1980s, the cracks in the Soviet system are clearly visible, even as their military spending remains the second highest in the world. The year 1991 marks one of the most drastic shifts in our entire timeline. The Soviet Union collapses. Notice what happens to the chart. Russia inherits the bulk of the Soviet military apparatus, but their economy is in freefall. Their defense budget plummets drastically, dropping out of the close race with the United States. We enter the 1990s in a unipolar world. The United States is the undisputed sole global superpower. American defense spending dips slightly, representing a brief peace dividend in the post-Cold War era, hovering around the $280 billion to $300 billion mark. During this decade, European nations also reduced their military footprints. However, further down the chart, an economic giant is awakening. China, having spent the 80s and 90s liberalizing its economy, begins to use its newfound wealth to modernize its People's Liberation Army. Though still far behind the US, the foundation for the next great power competition is being laid. The turn of the millennium changes the world overnight. The tragic events of September 11, 2001, violently drag the United States into the global war on terror. Interventions in Afghanistan and Iraq caused the American defense budget to explode once again. Within a single decade, US military spending doubles, soaring from roughly $340 billion in 2001 to a staggering $700 billion by 2010. But while the US is focused on counterinsurgency in the Middle East, the Asia-Pacific region undergoes a silent military revolution. China's defense budget begins an aggressive, relentless climb up the ranks. By 2010, China has solidly secured the number 2 spot, officially passing European powers and Russia. Meanwhile, a resurgent Russia, fueled by oil and gas revenues, begins a comprehensive modernization of its own armed forces, steadily climbing back up the chart to reclaim its historical position in the top 3. Regional powers like Saudi Arabia and India also see massive increases in their budgets, reflecting the growing multipolarity of the world and rising regional tensions in the Middle East and South Asia. As we move into the 2020s, the global security environment reaches levels of tension not seen since the height of the Cold War. The chart reflects a world arming itself for a new era of great power competition. In 2022, the outbreak of the largest land conflict in Europe since World War II sends shockwaves through the global economy. In response to the war in Ukraine, Russia's defense budget shifts into a wartime economy, spiking aggressively. European nations, realizing the urgent need for robust defense, radically reversed decades of budget cuts. Nations like Germany, the UK, and Poland announce historic increases in military spending. Simultaneously, tensions in the Indo-Pacific region continue to simmer. China's military expenditure crosses the $300 billion threshold, expanding its naval fleet, space capabilities, and missile forces at an unprecedented rate. India, too, solidifies its position as a top 5 military spender, modernizing its forces to secure its borders. And then there's the United States. To maintain its technological edge and global commitments across multiple theaters, the American defense budget pushes past $800 billion. Then $900 billion. Looking at the final year of our data, the CIPRI projections for 2026, the numbers are breathtaking. The United States crosses the historic $1 trillion mark, projecting an estimated $1.022 trillion in defense spending. China remains firmly in second place at projected $355 billion, while a mobilized Russia occupies the third spot at over $168 billion. Over the past 106 years, from 1920 to 2026, global military spending has evolved from modest post-World War I standing armies into a multi-trillion-dollar global enterprise, driven by advanced technology, cyber warfare, and geopolitical rivalries. What this data visualizes is the undeniable reality of human history. As economies grow and technological capabilities expand, nations will continuously invest vast fortunes to protect their interests, deter their adversaries, and secure their place in the global hierarchy. Thank you for watching WorldData Pulse. If you found this visualization insightful, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments which data race you would like to see next. Until next time, keep analyzing the world around you.